Rogov was not a bad man. But he was not a kind one either. Life had trained him to survive, not to soften. Every morning, he boarded the same overcrowded bus, stood in the same corner, avoided the same eyes, and carried the same invisible weight on his shoulders. Bills to pay. A job he didn't love. A home that felt more like a place to sleep than a place to live. Kindness, he believed, was a luxury for people who had time, money, and emotional space. He had none of those. So when the world pushed him, he pushed back. When people complained, he ignored. When someone needed help, he looked away not because he was cruel, but because he was tired. Very tired. One rainy evening, after a long and humiliating day at work, Rogov missed his usual bus. He stood at the stop, soaked, angry, and exhausted, watching water drip from his hair onto the cracked pavement. That's when he noticed her. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing under a broken shelter, holding a torn school bag close to her chest. Her uniform was wet, her shoes muddy, and her eyes were fixed on the road like she was waiting for something that was already late. Rogov noticed her only because she was crying silently. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just tears rolling down her face, mixing with the rain. He looked away. This is not my problem, he told himself. But the bus was late. The rain was heavy. And the silence of that crying child kept knocking on his mind. After a few minutes, against his own instincts, he asked, "Why are you standing here alone?" The girl looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide, scared, and honest. "My father didn't come," she said softly. "He always comes." Rogov felt irritation rise in his chest, not at her, but at the situation. "Do you have a phone?" he asked. She shook her head. "Do you know your address?" She nodded and whispered it. It was far. Too far. Rogov sighed deeply. He had plans to go home, eat, sleep, forget the day. Instead, he found himself hailing an auto. "I'll drop you," he said, almost annoyed at himself. The girl climbed in quietly, as if afraid to take up space. On the way, she spoke very little. But when she did, her words were simple and heavy. "My father works at the hospital," she said. "Sometimes he gets late. But he never forgets me." When they reached the address, Rogov saw a small, dimly lit house. Before he could knock, the door opened. A man stood there, panic written all over his face. His eyes were red, his shirt wrinkled, his hands trembling. He froze when he saw the girl. Then he ran. He hugged her so tightly that it looked like he was afraid she might disappear. "I'm sorry," the man kept saying. "I'm so sorry." The girl didn't complain. She didn't cry. She just hugged him back. The man turned to Rogov, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you," he said. "You have no idea what this means to me." Rogov nodded awkwardly. He didn't know what to say. As he walked away, something inside him felt unsettled. Not happy. Not proud. Just aware. That night, he couldn't sleep. Not because he had done something extraordinary, but because he realized how close he had come to doing nothing. Days passed. Life returned to its routine rhythm. But Rogov started noticing things he had ignored for years. The office cleaner who always smiled but never spoke. The old security guard who brought his own lunch every day. The silent intern who ate alone. One morning, the cleaner dropped her bucket, spilling dirty water across the floor. People complained. Some laughed. Rogov stood up and helped her clean. She looked at him like he had done magic. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. That night, she left an extra cup of tea on his desk. Another day, he shared his lunch with the intern. The intern smiled like someone who hadn't been seen in a long time. These were small things, almost meaningless. Yet, slowly, something inside Rogov began to shift. Kindness did not make his life easier. It did not solve his problems. It did not give him success. But it did something unexpected. It made him feel human again. Then came the day that broke him. On a crowded street, Rogov saw an old woman fall. People walked past her, busy, distracted, uninterested. For a moment, Rogov hesitated. He felt the old version of himself whisper, "You're late. Someone else will help." But he remembered the girl in the rain. He helped the woman up, took her to the side, and bought her water. She held his hand tightly. "My son used to help people like this," she said. "He died last year." Her words stayed with him long after she left. That evening, Rogov sat alone and cried. Not because he was weak, but because he finally understood something painful and true. Kindness is not about being good. It is about refusing to let the world make you cold. Months later, Rogov's life was still imperfect. Same job, same bus, same struggles. But he was different. He smiled more. He listened more. He helped not to change the world, but to stay alive inside it. One rainy evening, at the same bus stop, he saw another child standing alone. This time, he didn't wait. Kindness doesn't change the world overnight. But it saves parts of you that the world is trying to destroy. Be kind not because people deserve it, but because you do.